Previously on the Embracing the Journey podcast.
Today, I am here with Jamelle Sanders, serial entrepreneur, businessman, award-winning author. Let's introduce him.
A lot of times we say we want something for a particular reason, but deep down, that's not the truth. When the motive is not right, we'll continue to attract more of what we don't want. It's really because of an underlying belief or a perception that we have about ourselves that keeps us from achieving what we want to achieve in our lives.
Wow. You work with some pretty influential individuals. How do you stay level-headed? How do you not let those people that have high status and high qualifications not control your day? Welcome back to Embracing the Journey podcast. I'm your host, Norris Frederick, and we're here with Jamelle. If there are other people out there watching, and I'm sure that there are, what would be a piece of advice that you would give a hungry individual to stay on track?
I would tell people that when you have a compelling vision, consult between yourself and God or whatever other entities you have in your life that you turn to, but be very careful about who you share that information with. A lot of times we turn to people who do not have the capacity for us, looking for confirmation or validation or affirmation to do what it is that we have been assigned to do. And at the end of the day, nobody has your vision but you. Nobody knows your potential but you. Nobody knows the power that you have but you. So we can't get upset when somebody who wasn't part of the conversation critiques us on the things that we want to do, because it's not their vision. And they're not going to be compelled by the things that you're convicted by. So you have to know your vision, know who you are, and trust your capabilities and your capacity to get it done.
Woo! So it's phrases like that people often overlook. I've always told myself, if I walk into a room, I release the power of everybody. Just because you may be a CEO of a company, I'm still going to treat you as if you are a human being, right? If you're the president of the United States, I'm still going to treat you as a human being. And it's not that I'm going to have less respect, but I want to come off as the truest version of myself. And if I'm treating you to a title, right, that could be to your benefit or it can be to your discredit. It could be whatever. If you're the VP or the CEO of, X company, that actually doesn't mean anything to me. Your title doesn't mean anything to me. So I think what you said puts things back into perspective with it being easy to digest. I find that very interesting. And you're well-spoken about it. What are some hiccups that you've had along the way while starting your businesses and getting to where you are today?
I think the biggest hurdle that I had to overcome was mental. Not so much that a lot of times what we see as a barrier is connected to a belief system. And so people will say, I don't have access to this, or I don't know the right people, or I don't have the right opportunities. I don't come from the right circumstances. Well, that may be the case, but at the end of the day, nobody can stop you from walking through any door that you're assigned to walk through. And so what happens is we have to begin to address those limiting belief systems that we have about ourselves. And I know for me, it was this not really understanding who I was or my identity, or understanding that you are worthy to walk through any door, to sit at any table, to go into any room, and that you don't need any confirmation or validation to do those things in your life. And so a lot of times we're wondering why we're not attracting the right thing, and could things be the way they are because of a belief system that you have about yourself? Maybe that's the thing that's keeping you really from walking through the door and doing what you really want to do.
I resonate with that. So when we're walking through these doors and we're sitting at these tables, right? Oftentimes we compare the door that I'm walking in versus the door that you're walking in. Or even we could be at the same table, but why do you have a different position than me at this table? Why is your personality overthrowing mine? So this whole comparative nature that we have, do you think that that's like within our DNA, or do you think those are learned and taught behaviors?
I think it's a combination of both. I think that depending on your upbringing or different circumstances, that may contribute to it. But I think for a lot of us, it's really an internal thing that has always lingered there, whether we want to face it or believe it or not, that a lot of people have just had this deep struggle with who they really are, what their worth and value is, what they're really capable of. A lot of people don't know what they're capable of. So we're threatened when we go into a different setting because it's like, well, what does this person have that you don't have? And if you're not really familiar with yourself and what you're really capable of, and you don't have that belief in yourself, then you're going to start to see everybody as an enemy or your competition. Wow. And you don't really have any competition. I don't compete with anybody but the last version of myself to become a different version of myself.
Right. But you have to be mentally strong to understand and to agree and to know with what you just said, right?
Yeah, you do have to be mentally strong. I call it mental toughness. But mental toughness is something that you can only build after you know who you are and what you're capable of. And so as long as you're confused about who you are, you're going to release that confusion out into the world, and it's going to cause your brand to be misinterpreted. People are not going to interpret you correctly because you don't really have clarity around who you are.
Knowing who you are. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll see you guys soon.
Soft, chewy, sour. The gummy experience that you've been searching for. New from Sour Punch.
So I wanted to talk to you about your book, or excuse me, your book. How many are we at right now?
Well, at this time it's 12, but I just wrote the 13th, so there'll be another one coming soon.
Okay, so I'm not going to do this with you today. How do we find the inspiration behind 13 books? Not even addressing the time that it must take, but how do we find the motivation?
I think the motivation for me is understanding that there's a message in me, and there's only so many platforms that you can stand on or talk on with those messages. But what I've come to discover is that people are looking for life strategies.
Yep.
They want to know how to figure out life. They don't know how to do it. Nobody really speaks the language that people need for them to find the solutions. And so what I've done, I've just taken my life, my experiences, the work I've done behind the scenes, and I've just put those into books, packaged it with lessons and exercises and application, and put it out for people to help them improve their lives.
What is in your experience, what is your most compelling title of one of your books or chapter within one of the books?
I think the most compelling book I ever wrote was Significance. It's about reclaiming your personal power in a world that discounts your difference. It's a book all about identity, and it took me probably about 10 years to write that book. I started writing, I put it down, I came back after I learned some more lessons, and I picked it back up and I wrote it. And that book is probably the most personal, most revealing, most raw, most unedited book I've ever done, because it's the work that I had to do to figure out who I was and to be established in my identity.
Right. And like most people, whether you're it can be as early as elementary school or it can be as late as adulthood, But did you suffer an identity crisis as well?
All my life, I suffered from an identity crisis. I was talking to somebody a few weeks ago and telling them that you can come from the perfect background, the perfect circumstances, the perfect family. Like I come from a great family. I come from a great upbringing. They did a great job molding and shaping, giving us certain values, but there was still this very deep identity crisis that I had to overcome. And I spent a lot of time comparing, competing, trying to blend in to certain groups instead of blending out and figuring out who I was. So I had to figure that out. And I had to have the courage to just be who I am and be okay with it and not look for affirmation or validation, not trying to be like anybody else. Just be who you are and be okay with that and carve your own lane. And so it took me a long time to figure that lesson out. But once I figured that lesson out, it's like everything else worked itself out because you had the foundation for whatever you want to do with your life. But you have to figure out who you are.
Now, let me ask you this. This, to me, may be a loaded question. Where does mistaken identity root from?
That's easy.
Oh, talk to me.
It's rooted in low self-esteem. For me, it was rooted in low self-esteem. It was always an issue for me growing up. And on the outside, it would not appear that way because, like I said, I came from a great family. I was an honor student. I graduated in the top of the class. You had all the honors, all the different things. But there was this deep-seated identity crisis, and it came from low self-esteem. It came from rejection. Because people don't really know where to put you. Like you're just different from everybody else. So you have to navigate that and figure all of that out. And for me, it was rooted in that. So a lot of things couldn't happen in my life to a certain point because I didn't feel worthy of it anyway. I would have destroyed it if it came at that time. So you have to figure all of that out before you can really build a platform for your success.
Right. Interesting, because what I see in the world that I live in, some of the highest achieving people, and I can even put myself in this category, at times probably are the most insecure, have the lowest self-esteem. They don't think highly of themselves. They doubt a lot of the things that they do, but they know that they have this perception as to how people see them. So how often do you come up against that?
Ooh, personally or professionally?
Both.
That's something that you have to, first of all, let me speak to it personally. That's something you have to work on because every next version of yourself requires you to upgrade yourself. So what worked at this level won't work at this level. So that means that there's another level of mental work that I have to do. And then it goes into your professional achievement as well. Anything you want to do professionally or in your career, you have to go to the next level. That means that you have to become another version of yourself. And a lot of times people are stuck. They don't know how to do that because this is the way they've always done life. So you have to unlearn those behaviors, those patterns, those constructs. And that's the work that a lot of people are afraid of because they don't like what they're going to discover.
Wow. I want to tell you something my coach told me. I want to see if it's true in the space that you work in. He told me, don't confuse movement with progress. And what I took from that is if I go into work every day and I'm just going to work and, maybe my boss comes and he or she are like, hey, you're underperforming. How am I underperforming? And I've showed up every day. I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, the space of social media has it's diluted our minds into thinking what work truly is. A lot of time I'm on TikTok or Instagram. If you're not making an extra $40,000 a month, then you're not doing it right. And it's like, how is it that there's so many millions and billionaires or so many people making extravagant amount of money per month, but homelessness is the highest it's ever been? Unemployment is the highest it's ever been. And we just got done talking about mindset and mental toughness. If I'm already in a space where I feel like I'm at a disadvantage because I don't have the financial resources, and I hear so-and-so on the internet telling me like I can make $40,000 a month by putting in 20% of the work I normally would have to get 100% of the payout. How does one that's at the verge of being desperate comprehend that this message may actually not be true, that it's just here for you to stick around and consume the stuff on my feed so I can make a paycheck that's nowhere close to $40,000 a month? How does one navigate like that?
Again, I think you have to get very clear about your personal values and your personal journey. I feel like a lot of times people are looking on the internet because they don't really have a vision for their life. If you have a vision for your life, I don't have a whole lot of time to go seek a whole lot of experts on what they think. And when you don't live with a compelling vision, you become a casualty to other people's vision. So a lot of people are just following what this person said do, that person said do. But at the end of the day, the real question is, what should you be doing with your life? And is this person qualified to tell you what you should be doing with your life? Because they may be in a lane that's not even in congruency with your vision or what it is that you're trying to do.
Next week on the Embracing the Journey podcast.
Nobody knows you like you know you. People operate under assumption. And I always tell people that assumptions are the lowest form of reality. Very accommodating to be an assumptuous person because it does not require you to take responsibility for your own life or the decisions that you make.
I need you to talk to us about accountability because we live in a society where that is virtually non-existent anymore.
It's taking 100% responsibility for your life, your decisions, your actions, your outcomes.